Hello friends, this is Thaddeus from Going Nerdy, and today I've been doing a lot of thinking about the Han group. And I know that 5 Hans has been a lot of fun, and it's been, you know, a lot of people have enjoyed them, but really, there should be other characters that should have some better tunes, right? There should be other time devoted to characters that are from the lore, from the actual canon, and that need to be added to the game. Now, what I've done is I have come up with a list of 4 potential characters that need to be added to this game. Now, you might see a pattern as I go through this, or you might not. I don't necessarily know. There will be some spoilers to the Solo movie. If you haven't seen it, you may want to turn back now. If you haven't seen it at this point, though, it's likely you're not going to, and you're one of the few that have kind of made a decision not to go see it. And to each their own, but this might be a little spoilerific for you if you haven't and you still want to go see it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And the first character that I really want to see added to this game is what I call Jimmy Legs Maul, or Spider Legs Darth Maul. Now, Spider Legs Darth Maul was, for those of you who don't know, Maul kinda survived the episode 1 bisection, right? He got cut in half by ObiWan Kenobi. It's a great moment in the canon. It is super cool, where Obi-Wan is one of the few times ObiWan Kenobi embodies the Force as a whole, at the same time kind of brings on a little bit of the dark side, and, you know, cuts his enemy in half. It's pretty awesome, and it makes the Phantom Menace kind of like watchable. Right? Everyone goes to watch that scene. Everyone rewatches that scene. It's a great moment in the storyline. But he survives it. And much like a teenage girl, he survives it out of anger, hatred, and angst. You know, he's fixated on an enemy, being Kenobi, and he wants to be... he essentially holds all of his insights together through the darkness of the Force. Again, much like a teenage girl, and it's kind of cool. Now, he pieces himself together, and when he's found by his brother SWGOH, which really is the introduction to SWGOH, he's got these spider legs, and he's crazy. He's got these big old horns coming out of his head, and he's just crazy. And I think that would be a really cool character added to the game. I think having some kind of like berserker tank where he'd do a crazy amount of damage, but he'd be super slow, and he would just, kind of like how the Wampa, when the Wampa hits the ground, I could see him doing that with some like crazy spider leg move, but it would also hurt his, you know, his fellow, you know, dark side Force users, right, or something to that effect. I don't necessarily know. He'd have to have some kind of really cool synergy with SWGOH, which I think maybe giving Savage some kind of additional attack bonus or some kind of additional offensive bonus. Now, Savage is a great tank. Having that kind of connection with him would be phenomenal, right? But because, you know, his mental state in this time of his life, in this time of his being, is a little iffy, maybe he also hurts those around him. I don't know. I do think that it would be cool. I would like to see him maybe have an affinity with the Night Sisters. I think that would be kind of cool. Maybe a faction for just Night Brothers. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have the Night Sister tag, but gets the bonuses of all Night Sisters. I think that would be sweet. I do think that if he's going to be a tank, he should be slow. At the same time, it would be really cool if he was a very aggressive attacker with a sweet AoE. I would love that. That would be super sweet. Now, Maul's not a bad character now. Currently, he's a very solid character. He's someone that I feel that most people should invest in at one point or another. And I like him, but he could be better. Now moving on to the next character, I'm gonna call this character Mandalorian Maul, and this is the Mandalorian Maul. This is the Maul that becomes Mandalore, right? He takes over the Mandalorian culture. He uses Death Watch to kind of like build this kind of empire of Mandalorians, and he takes over the Mandalorian culture. It would be awesome. I think the coolest thing that would come out of this character, if they did introduce this character, would be a Mandalorian faction. Now, it's a matter of time before they give us one. Let's face it, Mandalorians, i.e. Boba Fett, are characters that people love. It's a civilization that people love, and understandably so. They're a warrior race. They're pretty freaking cool. What I would love to see if he were a Mandalorian, I would love to see him be able to unite all Mandalorians under that tag. So Sabine Wren, Imperial Super Commando, Gar Saxon. Those would be an awesome team. I think definitely we do need to see some Death Watch characters being thrown in there. I think it would be awesome to see Finn Rao from Rebels and from Clone Wars added in. I think that would be a really cool character. Just some other Mandalorians added in would be awesome. I don't know if they'll ever go that route. It would be cool, but I do think that if he had like a lead, it would kind of be like if the Ewoks wore Mandalorian armor and weren't Ewoks and were better, right? So I would see a lot of those same synergies, a lot of those same abilities from the Ewok team to this new Mandalorian faction, but who knows? This is definitely, you know, one of my, I'd love to see it happen, probably won't. With, you know, some of those abilities, he'd have a group attack, he'd have, you know, defense penetration, he'd grant speed up, which for, I don't know, which for this character would be, for this group would be really cool, because the Mandalorian currently, they're not super slow, and all Mauls should be fast enough. Or should be fast when they need to be fast. And I'll get to that here in a moment. But I think what would be cool is if this was to happen, that this specific Maul would somehow grant, I don't know, whatever team he's on, some abilities against Jedi, against anyone in the Galactic Republic, and specifically against General Kenobi. I think that would be awesome. I really do. Now moving on to number 3, second to last on my list. This is the one that I call Old Master. Now, quite possibly, this is the one that I want the most. Now, for those of you who are seasoned in Star Wars Rebels, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Old Master or you know, Darth Maul, not even Darth Maul at this point, he's just Maul. He's been living on Korriban, or I think Morban, which is they renamed it, which I thought was just weird and dumb. But he's been living on Morban, he's been living at this Sith temple, which is like this ancient weapon, and I don't know. It's this really cool moment, and when he's introduced, and it shows his underlying power. He is the seething, brooding, contemplative, really powerful with the dark side master. And I think what he would do is, one, he would definitely have some kind of synergy with Ezra Bridger. Maybe he'd make him hit harder, maybe he'd make him stun, maybe he'd make him faster, which again, Ezra's not slow. I don't necessarily know. He'd probably make Ezra so OP it would break the game. I don't know. I think that would be super cool. Just throwing that out there. I think that would be awesome. Now, also he could maybe he could give turn meter. I think he wouldn't be fast. I think this would be our slowest Maul. Maybe sitting at like 110, 120 speed, which again, nothing to really scoff at. Maybe a flat 100 speed. But with this Maul, when he hits, he is going to hit like 4 times, like super hard. He's going to have a really high critical chance and really high critical damage, but his accuracy is going to be low or something like that. I don't know. Maybe his accuracy won't be low. I say his accuracy's low because when he goes to cut off Kanan's head, he misses and just blinds him instead, right? Again, spoiler alert, but you know, if you haven't seen Season 4 of Rebels, Season 3 of Rebels at this point, you might not. So, I don't feel too bad in saying that. Now, I do think that this Maul would definitely be, he would help attack, like, Sith, the Phoenix team. He definitely have a synergy against Phoenix, which, I mean, you don't need really a Phoenix synergy right now, and so, or an anti-Phoenix team, because they're not meta. I mean, wait till we get Callus or, you know, Lightside Thrawn, if that ever happens. If either of those ever happen. We're not really seeing a Phoenix meta. I mean, there's some great Phoenix builds, there's some solid uses for the Phoenix team. We don't need an anti-Phoenix team. And so making Old Master like super OP doesn't seem right. But at the same time, making a Darth Maul Old Master not OP seems to be like the greatest injustice in like Galactic Senate history, or just the history of the Galactic Senate, or the Galactic Empire, or whatever you want to call it. It seems like a pretty big oversight. Oversight. Yeah. Now moving on, number 1, and this is the one that I think that we could eventually see, and this is where I think that we're going to see a little bit of spoilers. So again, guys, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen Solo, turn back now. If you have, or if you haven't at this point, you probably are, you know, not wanting to see it in the first place. But this is the one I call Crime Lord Maul. And this is the one that I think that we will eventually get. And I think that the last scene in Solo where Maul stands up and it's this really cool moment, and it's probably the coolest moment of the movie, like, what? No, it's friggin' Maul. And then, I mean, if you knew that he was still alive at this point, if you didn't know he was still alive, like, what? Why is Maul there? Wasn't he cut in half? You know? Why? But if you knew he was alive, it was a cool moment, right? It was awesome. I was expecting the Emperor. I was mistaken, obviously. I think that this would be cool, and it could give the, I don't know, the Scoundrel faction something really to push. Definitely the dark side Scoundrel faction. I could see this with a mob enforcer rework. I could see this with even a Gamorrean guard rework. I could see this with a number of different characters reworked or even added. I really am curious to see. I really hope they bring a Crime Lord Maul into the game. I also hope they're going to start throwing out some comics about this, or some, I don't think we're going to see any movies anytime soon, but I would love to see something revolving around this in the near future. I would love to see Crime Lord Maul. Now, as you've probably noticed, this video was all about the Sith we know as Maul. Now, technically, at the end of his life, he was not considered a Sith. However,